So today we have 1.5, 1.6 together. And in those sections, we're going to do operations of real numbers. Because that's what we've been talking about for the last week and a half or so, right? And real numbers, remember, were natural, whole, integer, rational, and irrational numbers. And when I say operations of real numbers, that means today we're going to talk about adding them, subtracting them, multiplying them, and of course dividing them. Alright, so as I said, this is all a review of what we've already done. Let's start by reviewing how to add and subtract, or add real numbers. So if we're going to talk about adding them or subtracting them, we had some rules we set up last week. If those rules are already in your notes, that is good for me. If you would like to add them again, that is awesome. When we add or subtract real numbers, however you want to think of it, if the signs are the same, we add, oops, helps if I spell, we add and keep the sign. Such as, if I have 5 plus 10, those are both positive numbers, so we add them together, we get 15, and since they're both positive, we keep that same sign as positive. If I have a negative 4 minus 12, remember the sign always goes with the number, so really that's a negative 4 and a negative 12. Those numbers have the same sign, so we add them together, and we keep that negative sign. Okay, so that rule is one of them we talked about last week. Are we good with that one? Okay. Second rule we talked about then was if the signs are different, then we technically do what? Subtract. Good. Then we subtract and keep the bigger sign. So for example, if I have negative 5 plus 20, the signs are different, right? So technically we subtract 20 minus 5, which gives us 15, and then out of the two numbers, which one's bigger, 5 or 20? 20, and 20 is positive, so our answer will be positive, exactly. So if I had, let's say, negative 12 plus 2. Again, the signs are different, so technically we're going to subtract 12 minus 2. We get 10, and then we got to keep the bigger sign, which is what? Perfect. Do we have a question on that rule? Okay. Mr. Ford, do you have any questions on that rule? Okay, just making sure. Want to cover all our bases. All right. The last rule we had when we were adding and subtracting is if subtracting a negative, then and I call it sandwich, and make positive. And of course, we go back to our other rules. So, for example, if I have 5 minus a negative 7, we have a minus and negative, so we sandwich those. If we sandwich them together, it becomes a positive number, or a positive. So I have 5 plus 7, so now the signs are the same. So we add them together and keep the sign. Do we have any questions on that rule? How about this one real quick then? What if I had negative 4 minus a negative 30? What's the very first thing we do? Sandwich. Very good. Now look though, I have a negative 4 and a positive 30. So my signs are different. What do I do? Good. Subtract, so I get 26. Is it going to be positive or negative? Very good. You guys are awesome. All right, so on our worksheet today, example number 1, the first 10 problems, and I say 10 problems because some of these problems are like crazy. I'll tell you the very first problem is 6 minus 6. I think we can handle a few extra problems today. Okay? So 1 through 10, I simply want you to add, and let's do some easy ones in here. How about something like this? 5 minus a negative 6.3. Now, my rule is if it starts as a decimal, it finishes as a decimal, right? If it starts as a fraction, it finishes as a fraction. Okay, so what rule do we have to use here? We have a minus and negative. Sandwich, good. So now we're just going to add 5 plus 6.3, and we get 11.3. Now remember, if we're talking about real numbers, it's anything that can be written in fraction form. So we probably should revisit a fraction. So let's say I have 3 1/2 plus a negative 5 1/3. All right, you guys. When we are adding these together, what's the very first thing we have to do? What do we want to do before we get a common denominator? Very good. Make them proper. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 more is 7. Plus, here, 3 times 5 is 15 plus 1 more is 16 over 3. But what about that pesky little negative? Good. It stays with a 16. All right. Now that they're improper, now we can get a common denominator of what? 6. Very good. So I have 6. What do I have to multiply my first fraction by? What do I have to multiply my second fraction by? Awesome. So my top line, 7 times 3 is 21, plus negative 16 times 2 is negative 32. All right, so we just got to do that top line. I have positive 21 and negative 32. What's my rule? Subtract. So it's going to give us a negative 11 over 6, because our common denominator already did its job, right? Perfect. Do we have any questions adding and subtracting? Yippee-ki-yay. All right. Well, I guess if we've done adding and subtracting, got to do our multiplying and dividing. Now, we technically haven't talked about these rules, but they're so easy I usually don't. So let's just kind of touch on them very quickly. All right. If the signs are the same, result is positive. Very good. I like to think of multiplying and dividing as our teams. If we are all on the same team or have the same sign, that's a positive thing, right? Next one. If the signs are different, the result is, so our signs are different. We're on different teams. The result is going to be negative. Exactly. All right, so here's example number 2. Example number 2 is 11 through 18. Let's do just a couple in here. So let's say I have, how about negative 20 times negative 3. So now when we take our numbers, 20 times 3, we get 60, right? Negative times a negative is a? Awesome. So what if I have 12 times negative 10? Negative 120. Very good. So 12 times 10 is 120. We have a positive and a negative. Positive times a negative is going to be a negative, right? Now, of course, if we're talking about real numbers, let's add a fraction in here. So let's say I have 2 1/3 times by negative 1 1/6. That looks good. All right, so I'm going to multiply two fractions together. What's the very first thing we have to do? Improper. Awesome. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 more is 7 over 3. Times by 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 more is 7 over 6. But don't forget your negative. Very good. All right, now if we're multiplying fractions, do I got to get a common denominator, or do I look to see if I can cross-reduce? Can I cross-reduce anywhere? So what do I do? Just multiply across. That's it. So 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. 3 times 6, 18. And you're done. Okay? All right. Example number 3. And it's going to be the rest of it, 19 to 24. We're going to divide. Now, you guys have seen how we normally do it, but I always say that a fraction is nothing more than a division problem. So we're going to write our division problems a little bit different today. So first of all, let's say I have 14 divided by negative 2. Right? That's just a fraction. It's just a division problem. Positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 14 divided by 2? Good. All right, let's say I have negative 50 divided by negative 10. Negative divided by a negative is a, and 50 divided by 10. Now let's have some fun. You ready? Let's see, No, not the house. Say I have negative 8 over 5 over 6 over 5. So this is a fraction divided by a fraction, or it is, or as you guys said on the other side of the building, skip, flip, multiply, right? So we're going to skip this first one. We have negative 8 over 5. We're going to make it multiplication, and I'm going to flip this one over. 5 over 6. Now we can cross-reduce. The 5s, I agree, Haley. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 5 once. What else can I cross-reduce? Negative 8 and 6. What goes into both? Good. 2 goes into 6 3 times. And 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I have negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And I have 1 times 3 is 3. Beautiful. All right. Last one right here in the same example, and I'm going to leave you alone. Okay? I'll get you your worksheet, and you guys can get it done. Since y'all have, like, games and stuff going on. How about if I have 1 and 2 fifths divided by 3 and 1 seventh. Let's make them both negative, too. Let's really have some fun. So how about negative 1 and 2 fifths divided by negative 3 and 1 seventh? Well, first of all, anytime we're working with fractions, we have to make them what? Always make them improper first, right? So let's start with this top one. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 more is 7. So I have negative 7 over 5 over, on the bottom, I have 7 times 3 is 21 plus 1 more is 22, or negative 22 over 7. So right now I'm dividing, and I have a negative divided by a negative. So my answer is going to be what? Good. Now how do I want to rewrite this at this point? Skip, flip, multiply. So I'm going to skip the first one, negative 7 over 5. Multiply, and I'm going to flip the bottom one, 7 over negative 22. We already said a negative divided by a negative is going to make us positive, right? What else we got? Oh, so now what do we do? Multiply across. 7 times 7. Good. And how about 5 times 22? Good. Nice job. Oops. Let's try that again. How about 110? Yeah. All right. Any questions? All super easy? Great way to start like me coming back, right?